This is To The Point, your briefing on Asia's entertainment business. I'm Janine Stein.
And I'm Patrick Fraser.
And if it's happening, content streaming, cinema, or corporate chaos, we're talking about it.
So let's get to the point. Janine, you and I both saw a report coming from Media Partners Asia, research and consultancy firm this week, talking about the streaming landscape in Southeast Asia. And one of the highlights that report drew was the strength and growth of Indonesia. How significant do you think that is?
Well, I think it's massive for a number of reasons. And MPA report basically pointed out, I think, to some consternation of regional streamers, that Vidio, the Indonesian domestic platform, is now second in engagement only to Netflix. And that's a really significant achievement. And the other really important finding in this, it's a quarterly report for Q4 2025, is that Korean and Indonesian titles are neck and neck in Indonesia, with I think it's 30% doing share each. That proves a lot of things. A, that Vidio is on the right track with streaming, and there's a lot of theories and analysis of what Vidio is. Like, it's part of the whole MTech group, which has an end-to-end media business amongst other things. So it's got free TV, it's got e-commerce, it's got a whole lot of other elements to its business. But the bottom line is that Vidio, this streaming platform and video entertainment, is really improving. And I put that down to support for a new content strategy shaped by Mark Francis, who we spoke to last week, that really looks at the audience in a completely different way. So when everybody pulled back from Indonesia, Mark actually leaned in, and he really was thoughtful about audience segments. Listen, I mean, if you, I urge everyone to listen to the podcast, because he's really strategic and he's taken some bets. The engagement numbers are just through the roof. At Vidio's Upfront on Friday night, they put up just some really, really stellar numbers. And I was thinking in the beginning, it's kind of a star event. It's kind of an advertiser's event. Why is the CEO on stage? And then I saw the numbers and I thought, well, if I was the CEO, I would also go on stage. What do you think?
I thought it was really interesting. Mark's conversation with us last week was extremely good. I thought extremely interesting, but he was unable to give us the figures that have now been published. He was obviously itching to do so, and now we can see why. So that's quite funny. The other thing I thought that came out of the report was that that in different parts of Southeast Asia, we have Chinese content growing, we have Thai content growing. And Korean is kind of holding still, but that must mean that something else is losing out. And I can only assume, though they didn't break the figures down in the press release, probably in a detail for paid subscribers, that American content must be losing some ground. I mean, that is my obvious conclusion. I'd like to see that confirmed or not, but what do you think is losing out, Janine?
I think American content or foreign content could be losing out, but I don't know if it's so much as losing out as the market is just recalibrating. Maybe there are now a lot more quality options, or a lot more options that engage local audience in a much more significant way.
Gosh, what a diplomatic answer. Brilliant.
Well, in my new life, I'm going to be a diplomat, but I just think that Indonesia's share, and look, it's for one quarter.
Yes.
So let's not declare victory for all time. It's for the last quarter of 2025.
Sure.
I think that the way Mark and Vidio has approached content is quite astonishing. They also had some incredibly good success with a bet they took on a live combat sports event. So that could be in there. In terms of engagement, they've done some really like sexy titles that Vidio can get away with on streaming, but that might not work on. But he's taken things like arranged marriage and young people's. I mean, at one time, everyone would have gone, "Oh my God, that's way too sensitive. No way, we're not doing that." It takes quite a long time. I think the market. Our obsession, or the market's obsession with quarterly performance, doesn't sit well with content development, because it takes such a long time to develop content. So I think Mark's been there for a couple of years, and now we're starting to see the results of the considered way he approaches this slate.
When you say that things take a long time to get into play, to fall into place, content strategies take time. That is a perfect cue for a conversation that you and I previously had, and was recently updated by what Amazon is doing in this region. You had a look at what they're doing just a few days ago. What did you conclude from that?
So they did their international upfront. So Amazon's been really up and down if you take it over the last few years. They went full in on Southeast Asia and then pulled right back. It's pretty clear now that they've consolidated their attention and focus on Japan, and that's anime. There's no live action that they presented last night for 2026, but they did highlight that this was just a selection and it was international. So APAC was folded into Latin America, the UK, Europe. There was a lot from Spain, Mexico, Brazil. But India, they're full on in India, which is what they've always been. India's always been a stronghold for them. And Japan, and the other one was Korea. But it was just really obvious. Their full slates have not been announced. They said they will do that at a later time. But it was obvious from last night that they're not expanding that focus and they're licensing a lot. So it's kind of Amazon Originals light, because yes, they do take global rights, excluding Japan. I think one of them was excluding China. I think there was excluding Russia at some point. So obviously the local partners are taking cherry picking rights, like certainly for Korea. They've got a very strong deal with CJ. So they are buying a lot, but it's licensed. So I don't know what that means long term, but they're certainly in play. The anime was very interesting. I'm not an expert in anime, but they did go all out on telling what titles they had. Yeah. They've all been announced. So most of what they said last night seemed to have already been announced. I mean, you just have to do a quick Google search and it's like last month, last year, the year before.
I do find Amazon interesting. I think the company, the corporation, the giant, whatever you want to think of it as, has the potential to be one of the largest aggregators of content worldwide, whether it's aggregating individual pieces of content or channels or anything else. And they have got some strongholds in Asia. Japan is an interesting one because they're among the biggest streaming players in the second largest market, the third largest entertainment market in the world, the second largest in Asia. But as you say, their content, their strategy is built on licensed content. They're not really building and owning the footprint in the same way as you've just described Vidio, which has got a local audience by delivering local content that they own and will be on their servers forever. Amazon will have to go back and relicense it every time. It's very odd to me.
The interesting thing about Vidio, if I can go back to that for a minute, is that they don't really seem to have a very strong sales story. So I feel like, so there's one interesting thing that happened that I that I forgot to mention, is that CJ in Hong Kong has sold the first series of Bad Guys, which is a remake of a Korean title, from CJ. So they've sold it to Japan, to Unext. And I think that's very interesting because that's really, it could be Unext is testing Indonesian content. It could be Bad Guys. The original worked really well on Unext and they want to see. It could be just a really strong sales story for CJ. But I don't know that I remember an Indonesian program ever going into Japan. So that's a really significant one. But Vidio as a whole doesn't seem to have a strong sales story. Maybe that will start now that their programming is better. That's one to watch.
Yes, well, nobody's perfect, but maybe they'll catch on after listening to your comments.
But you're right. You're absolutely right that they do own most of it. I think in the case of Bad Guys, the international rights might belong to CJ. I don't know the terms of the contract, but normally there's the rights holder of the original format takes some rights and then they share somehow. Okay. So they obviously don't disclose it to me, but I think it is interesting that Indonesian content could be starting to travel, and maybe just Vidio didn't get to it. Not that they don't want to sell, maybe they just haven't got to it yet. They wanted to get a proper library. I think he said they've got like more than 100 originals now. So that's an interesting catalog to take to market. So we'll see. I'll watch out for them at Filmart.
I will watch out for more of that word which Vivek at Media Partners Asia likes to use, which is travelability. Talking about shows which cross borders. I think that's one of Asia's big weaknesses. We've touched on that before, but it'll be interesting to see if Chinese content can work better internationally, Thai content can continue its expansion, and now we can add Indonesian content to that mix as well.
You mentioned travelability and you mentioned Chinese content. TVB said, and this is also very interesting because Queen of News was one of their big hits, but TVB issued a positive profit warning this week. It's a rare occurrence, and they cited Queen of News as one of the big breakout successes. So I thought that was good news.
It sounds weird when you call it a profit warning in a positive fashion. Mostly you talk about negative profit warnings or loss warnings. They have to do it so that they are not seen as misleading the market.
But what does it show?
Maybe all their stars have aligned in one particular quarter or one particular half year, and they have to. I mean, in fact, TVB must be somewhere in the mix with another hit that we would like to mention, I think, which is a film that's doing very well at the Hong Kong box office. It's called Back to the Past. It's a feature film extension of a TVB property. That it's blowing the doors off the Hong Kong box office at the moment. It may be the only Hong Kong film to do that at the moment, but it's giving a bit of a gloss to the overall Hong Kong box office, which has been on something of a downtrack, or at least a wobbly road for the last couple of years. But the Hong Kong box office for the last couple of years has been punctuated by some significant local hits, and this is another one. As I say, it's based on a TVB property. So somewhere along the line, they might be putting out another positive profit warning as well.
I think we need all the positive news we can get because the rest of the industry, a lot of people are still scrambling.
Yes.
I don't know that 2026 is going to be it's going to bring the relief that people were hoping for, but it's good to kick off with Vidio, with TVB. I think this is a good way to start the Lunar New Year.
Well, I've also been looking at some of the big Japanese companies which have been reporting their profits in the last week or so. And three of the biggest, Sony, Nintendo, and Dentsu, have come up with completely different profit scenarios. Sony reported their profits the other day. Their revenue was up a couple of percent, but their operating profits were up, I think it's 18 or 20%, which is pretty significant in the third quarter. And they've revised their profit forecast for the full year, which runs to the end of March, upwards again. This has been driven, I think, partly by electronics and chips, more so than by entertainment, but mostly entertainment delivered a pretty solid quarter. And so Sony is looking an ever stronger conglomerate. They have money in the bank, and they're using it to acquire other companies. So they are becoming an even bigger force. And I know I've mentioned this before in our conversations, but I'm looking at the growing strength of Sony as one of the now 5 major US studios, but they're global powerhouse now, and I'm fascinated to see their journey back to the prominence that they would like. That is in contrast with Dentsu, the giant advertising and everything else and rights ownership conglomerate in Japan, which actually cancelled its dividend for the last period. And this is not completely about operations, but they've had to write off a lot of investments that they've made in overseas companies. And that company is now going to have to be restructured. I think they're looking for various new executives. And then coming somewhere in the middle, Nintendo, the games company and the hardware company, reported pretty flat profits, which sounds a bit boring, but they've had to overcome quite a lot of cost increases due to the global race for microchips at the moment, which has driven the cost of those components upwards. So Nintendo's also doing quite well. But I just wanted to circle back to Sony, and I'm going to have to read this to you because it's kind of interesting what they're saying about AI as well. They talked about AI as a powerful new addition to their toolbox, but said that they are using it creatively. The words I think were, "Tools alone do not create a business. Um, New opportunities and entertainment uh, emerges when artists' creativity is combined with those tools." And they say that their mission is now to help creators master AI quickly and support its commercialization. I think that's really interesting. I haven't heard Sony speak in that kind of tone before.
It's echoing what a lot of creators are saying, but may have been dismissed because people go, "Oh yeah, that's wishful thinking. AI is definitely taking your job. AI is definitely replacing you." And I think the more mature companies are saying, you know what, they're embracing AI and integrating it into their businesses and their thought processes and their workflows. And if other companies follow that and take the fear out of AI.
Another headline that you and I both saw this week, in that the Singapore Film Festival is moving from late November, early December to middle of October. What do you make of that? Because you also spotted a big kicker at the end of that announcement.
I did. No, just because I'm sad and I read to the end of things because I know where people bury stuff. They moved the date. The reason they gave was that they want to get out of the year-end Hollywood crush. Is that your take, or do you think there's another reason?
I buy it a little bit. I mean, obviously, commercial cinemas don't want to give up their space to a film festival when they know they could be selling more tickets to the big December Christmas blockbusters. So there's a degree of truth and legitimacy to that. However, it does two things as well. First of all, it takes it out of the Singapore Media Festival, which is this overarching umbrella event with the ATF, a conference, Singapore Comic Con, and various other things. So it kind of shifts it and breaks it away from that. Maybe they'll still keep the umbrella label, but it certainly won't be temporarily consistent with the other events. And it also puts it in mid-October, when there's a lot of other film festivals going on around the region. And they must have shoehorned it in between all the other things that are going on. But now, if you're a film festival addict, you could start in Busan, go to Pingyao, you could go to Singapore, go to Tokyo, and go to JAF without ever setting foot at home.
You're basically on the road for 2 months, which you are anyway.
It's going to be a crowded calendar.
I don't have an issue with them running it in October. I mean, Singapore's my home ground. If I'm here in October, I'll certainly go to some of the films, which I don't have time to do in December because of all the media festival. So maybe that's good for us. I feel like there's another story because in December last year they had record attendance. I mean, there's no getting away from the announcement that attendance was up. Everything was up last year. So why, if everything's working really well in a spot, why would you give it up?
I know that they have much bigger ambitions. I think they got a decent increase in spectator numbers, but they want to go much further, much further. And I think this must be part of that. But then I am puzzled, and you're puzzled by what we found at the bottom of that announcement, in that there's going to be a hiatus to the Singapore Film Festival's film fund. And I'm a little bit puzzled by that. There must be another shoe that's going to drop. I hope it's not a negative one, and that they're going to come back maybe with a bigger film for fund in their next announcement. But I was a little puzzled by, here's the good news, we're moving to a more popular date, a better date, but by the way, we're cutting off supply of money to the filmmakers.
Well, so you see, so maybe, yes, suspicion might be overstating it, but here, so the way it's all structured is, we had a fantastic year in December, record attendance, record everything, but actually we're moving out of that space. Okay, that's like, okay, why would you do that? But fine, I'm good. Like maybe something else happened. And then we're cutting this film fund. Now, the film fund is a regional film fund, so they listed a number of films that they had supported. You'll be able to say if they were well-regarded films or not, but I have to assume that they are if they were mentioning them. And maybe, and also it's all consistent with Singapore's outreach to the creative community around the region. So Singapore's on a real mission to make co-productions, not only with neighboring Malaysia, but more broadly. Like they've got this Korean one that Amazon just bought. That's Kupang and MediaCorp. So I I don't know what's behind the hiatus. And they just said we'll be coming back soon. But maybe the director has got a much bigger plan. Maybe this wasn't enough money for him.
I'm sure they do.
Okay. I look forward to hearing it, seeing what it is.
Well, but you're also right. You're also right about Singapore in its attempt to build itself as a hub for financing and co-production within the region. The Berlin Film Festival kicked off this week as well.
Yeah.
I think I counted 4, if not 5, Singapore co-productions within that, and it includes one majority Singapore production, Anthony Chen's new film, We're All Strangers, which is in main competition in Berlin as well. Anthony's an exceptional talent, not based in Singapore, but still maintains his Singapore roots quite closely. And I think that is going to continue to put Singapore on the map. Maybe there's another shoe to drop, and as I say, I'm hoping it's going to be a positive one.
Well, hopefully, I think it will become clear in time. I also think if something is struggling and you don't know where to go with it, I do think it's better to rest it for a while. Nobody goes to prison, nobody dies if they put a film fund on hiatus for 1 year.
That's a very good point. Rest it for a while, sort it out, get it right.
Yeah, rest it for a while. Just figure it out, because many things are changing now.
Yeah.
I think this is a perfect time to pull back and say, okay, we want to do something amazing, but this is the bandwidth we have, doesn't fit. Let's bring it back next year. So that's the Singapore Film Festival is going to be an interesting one to watch. You have some Chinese New Year box office news.
Well, I've got a collection of box office thoughts. First of all, last weekend globally was one of the quietest in several weeks or months for cinema box office. Part of that is due to the annual and expected hiatus that happens every year at the end of January, beginning of February. It just seems to be a low point for cinema going, and therefore the studios don't put out their biggest movies. In Asia, that's compounded by the fact that the biggest movies are all going to be released at Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, which is starting imminently, and therefore the Chinese films are not. The big Chinese films are kept in abeyance for a few days. But weirdly and interestingly, the biggest film of last weekend was a K-pop concert movie. It sneaked through the cracks, and the Stray Kids movie, I can't get its title right, it's complicated. The Stray Kids concert movie was the biggest film in the world, with a very modest total of $19 million, but hats off to them. The other thing that has now become clearer is that last year's so-so performance in different parts of Asia was not alone. The European Audiovisual Observatory has just put out figures as well. And they showed that spectator numbers in Europe last year dropped by 5.5%. So at the risk of schadenfreude, Asia is not alone in its struggles with box office.
Well, I keep hearing about all this drama at the box office, and I read your Substack and I figure out that Japan's booming, India's booming, Indonesia's booming, Malaysia's got amazing films that are breaking records. So it seems like we're doing okay.
We're doing okay. Considering the challenges, considering the competition for eyeballs from other places, perhaps we are doing okay. We will see more. We will know much better, I think, in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, because it's now very clear what is coming out for the Lunar New Year. I think we've spoken about this in the past, and I identified 4 major Chinese films which are coming out for Lunar New Year. We now know that there are 6 big titles coming out. The additional one is called Panda Plan 2. It's a new Jackie Chan film. Why did we ever count him out? He's always around for Chinese New Year.
I didn't count him out.
This is
Who
a,
counted him out?
this is a sequel to a successful franchise. I'm sure it'll do well at least for a few days. Jackie Chan films generally start very well in cinemas, so that's one of them. And the other one is one I know much less about. I'm going to read the title because it sounds it's Latin: Per aspera ad estera, or Starry River in My Dreams. Those are the two English titles for this Chinese film. It's a sci-fi film, which I find is interesting. It's about how to manufacture dreams artificially. But I like the lineup now. We have a martial arts action movie. We have a Zhang Yimou national security thriller. We have a race car comedy actioner. And we have these two additions. Plus, we have the annual Boonie Bears animation movie, which also does very well. Don't laugh. This franchise is such a success. Every year they seem to get even bigger. They're there every single time. It actually is now beginning to look like a fairly strong Chinese New Year at the box office. Taking bets as to which one is going to win overall is a loser's game. But I think the Yunhua Ping martial arts actioner called Blades of the Guardian, Wind Rises in the Desert, is going to at least be the biggest one in the first few days. That's my bet.
So if you recommend me two movies for Chinese New Year.
I'm going to go and see, as I say, Blades of the Guardians, and probably the Zhang Yimou film, which has a not very strong English title called Scare Out.
There was one film that it premieres in Berlin, and I was included for some reason in the media list, and it just struck me immediately because I can't be the only person whose biggest nightmare is being swallowed by their hair, being eaten by their hair, or being just terrorized by hair. It's an Indonesian film, premieres in Berlin tomorrow by Edwin. So I don't know where we'll be able to see it, but it's really, really cool.
And I believe it's a Singapore co-production, just to bring the conversation back full circle. Janine, thank you so much for that viewing tip.
This has been To The Point.
Thank you for watching.